Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Kirk Cousins back to throw on 4th and 18. He's given time. He wants Jefferson. Climbs the ladder. Oh, my goodness! Justin Jefferson pulled it in. The catch of his life.
It's still unbelievable seeing it. It's still crazy to see. We're going to go back for y'all. Hold on. Jets over there somewhere. Oh, my God. Unbelievable, dog. Unbelievable. Best catch of the year. Best play of the year. You can't tell me no catch was better than this one. I'll argue with you. Look at that. Hit the ground. Ball is still in my hand. Jets over there somewhere.
Oh.
You know, we should do that with some of Judd's best takes throughout the year. Just can we go back? AJ, can you maybe spend some time just going back, grab some of Judd's best takes, and then we can have Judd just sit there and marvel at how great his takes were?
Look
at that take. Best take of the year.
He goes third person,
No
though.
one had a better take than that. Wow, look at that.
He goes third person. That's what I love the most. Jets over there somewhere. There's Jets. Jets out there somewhere.
Jugs. Look at Jugs.
Look at Jugs.
So,
unbelievable.
Mackey finishing his take. Jugs about to drop one in here. Oh,
unbelievable Jugs. Oh, my gosh. You know what? Deep in the recesses of Jets' brain, I would love to know how much 4th and 8 against the Giants was knocking around.
Oh, classic! You got to make that clip about Kirk. Look at it.
Wow!
I
know. I didn't
look
say
at the
anything.
mental gymnastics needed to turn that into a Kirk Cousins
you know what?
fest.
I wasn't talking about myself. I'm talking about Jet. I mean, Jet's thinking for Jet.
What were the pre-show odds on us playing a Justin Jefferson clip and then Judd in the first 2 minutes ripping Kirk Cousins somehow?
Was that not?
I'll throw sailed a little bit. I just want to say.
Was that not a throw? Was that not? That is one of the top 5 plays of the entire 2022 National Football League season, right?
It was a great throw too. I want to make that clear. I was just kidding. The ball didn't sail.
Actually,
it was perfectly placed.
Kirk criticized himself. Said that throw could have been better.
Really? Okay.
Yes, at the time he's like, I could have made a better throw there.
I'm excited for the Netflix series just to see that type of candor while Kirk cuts into a well-done Salisbury steak inside of his his home, hanging his plaid shirts up out of the laundry. This is Purple Daily, by the way, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. And the show is presented by our friends, now an official partner of the NFL, by the way, TCL. No matter what you watch, TCL has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. And TCL makes more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, home appliances. TCL brings you joy and simplicity through innovative technology. And before we get to Feedback Friday here, and some of you probably will be listening to this episode after our Friday Purple Daily Town Hall finishes up, but we are going to be at the Choice Bank Minnesota Golf Show today, Friday, as we record this at 2 o'clock for an hour or two. We'll be on the microphones just hanging out, drinking a couple beverages. My guess is inside Minneapolis Convention Center Hall B. So today at 2 o'clock and Saturday at 2 o'clock at the Choice Bank Minnesota Golf Show. Tickets are just $12. You get all sorts of goodies with your ticket, including a bunch of free rounds of golf. MinnesotaGolfShow.com. You can also walk up and get tickets. So, but MinnesotaGolfShow.com. Check it out. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if 5 people are going to show up and hang out with us and they're all just going to be golfing, or if 50. Great. But we'll be slinging some takes. And if you want to take Judd on in a rousing episode of Random Viking of the Week, I have one prepared for the live show.
Let's do it.
So,
love that. Yeah.
Step on up and issue your challenge. All right. Feedback Friday. You can always submit throughout the week questions, comments, concerns, critiques, whatever you want to the Score North app. There's a feedback tab in there. We're also monitoring YouTube comments, Twitter. This is from Prashant. Potential free agent targets at wide receiver that could slot in as a decent number 2 if the Vikings, let's say I think the only way they would do this is if they move on from Thielen. I don't know that they would pay Justin Jefferson with that money coming up in a couple years.
Sure.
And have Thielen and KJ Osborne. They'd have to probably have an opening in there, but that's a realistic possibility. So he throws out these names: Robbie Anderson, Corey Davis, row the boat, DJ Chark, Jacoby Myers, Alan Lazard. Do any of those 5, I'm putting you guys on the spot a little bit here because you haven't done research on this, but do any of those 5 receivers, just off the top of your head, strike you, move you in any way?
I feel like there's an issue with what they're going to get paid, probably. So, that's. I guess my starting question is, what are we talking about contractually?
So, Jacoby Myers, according to PFF, he is the top receiver on the market, even ahead of OBJ. OBJ's coming off injuries, old.
I'm good on that one now.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers.
Yeah,
$15 to $20 million projected average annual value. I think the Vikings they're not swimming in that pool. DJ Chark is interesting. He's 26 years old. He's 6'4" deep threat. In fact, the last 4 years, he has 33 catches of 20 yards or more, and that's in limited targets. He's not like a number one targeted receiver guy. He's projected to sign a contract, a multi-year deal for $12 million a year, according to PFF, which is still a lot, but more reasonable, and a guy that, if he's healthy, could pretty easily step in and stretch the field across from Justin Jefferson.
Yes, that one intrigues me for sure, because I do think that at the end of the day, when you get a 2 to Jefferson, and by the way, to be very clear, it is a number 2. So it is not a 1A, 1B. The Diggs, Thielen days are long gone, okay? So it's not like, oh, Jefferson's going to have a guy who's going to be just like him statistically. No, Jefferson's very, very special. But a guy like Chark, to what you just said, Phil, would stretch the field, which I am big on. I think that you need somebody who is a threat to take the top off the defense, because that allows Jefferson to freelance more. And it means that if you are going to shut down Jefferson, you're going to pay a big price. Like, if you go back, one of the fatal flaws, unfortunately, for the 2022 Vikings, and I don't know if we want to say it's because Thielen was hurt, he was old, combination of things probably, but who stretched the field? Like, who was the threat to stretch the field? Now, TJ Hawkinson stepped in and played the Thielen role really, really well. But he's not a stretch the field guy. He is a guy who opens up more room in the intermediate areas. So I think that the most important thing that you could do is find somebody who is a deep threat. And now it's like almost a pick your poison, because that's the one thing. I don't think the Vikings offense and O'Connell in his play calling had that trick in his bag. And ultimately, against good teams, I think it cost you.
Here's a crazy thing. And I don't have the comparative to the rest of the league, so I wish I did. But anecdotally, this just seems like a problem that needs to be fixed. So last season, the Vikings didn't have a ton of explosive plays relative to the league. I think they got better at it later in the season, but it was a problem. Their passing game for the first half of the year especially was a lot of short intermediate stuff, and sometimes Justin Jefferson down the field. So last year, this is receptions of 20 or more yards in the air. So not necessarily explosive plays that go 20 plus yards. These are deep passes that travel 20 yards or more in the air. Justin Jefferson had 17 catches. So yeah, he averaged 1 per game. And he also had a bunch of other ones that went for 20 plus yards that he caught intermediate and just yacked his way to a 20-yard game. So 17. Adam Thielen had 5. KJ Osborne had 4 all year. Jalen Reagor had the 1. It was that 38-yard catch in early December.
And that was Kirk, because Kirk just heaved that ball. I think Kirk got hit
smoked,
hard, right?
Yes.
I think it was against the Giants. Yes.
Yep. And Jalen Reagor was kind of breaking wide open. And then Jalen Naylor had 2 of them in garbage time. So if you want to count those 2.
Yep.
They don't have, again, DJ Chark is a guy that has had 33 receptions of 20 plus yards or more in the air over the last 4 years. And he has not had nearly the target count that say Adam Thielen has had. So if you can find someone, here's another name though for you that a few different emailers pointed out. Mm-hmm. He is, I believe he's a free agent, or he's either a free agent or he's about to be. Robert Woods
just got released.
Okay. So he can actually sign now.
Yes.
Because if you get released, you can sign before the league year.
Yes.
So Robert Woods spent 5 years in Los Angeles after spending a handful of years in Buffalo to start his career. In that Sean McVay offense, Kevin O'Connell, he won a Super Bowl with the Rams in 2021, although he got injured halfway through the year, and then OBJ kind of took over the snap counts. But Robert Woods, a really good intermediate possession receiver at age 30, 31, was with Tennessee last year. And this is something that I think it's kind of boring, and it's not the flashiest reason to sign someone. He is still one of the best run blocking wide receivers in the NFL, which is an area that Adam Thielen's game suffered in last year. He's 2 years younger than Thielen. So if you're looking for like a better version of what Thielen is now and a younger version, not a guy that would stretch the field necessarily,
Right.
but a good professional wide receiver, you could do a lot worse than Robert Woods. Your thoughts?
So I feel like he's a guy that if you had decided that Osborne was not the guy, I feel like he would slot into the 3. But I feel like if Osborne's still on the team, I don't know where Woods would play, because at his age, he doesn't strike me as the 2 that you're trying to find. So I think, and I don't know this, I think this very much, that portion of the conversation depends on how O'Connell and Kwesi feel about KJ Osborne, which I'm not quite sure. I came out of training camp last year because KJ in his second year had been pretty damn effective. And I came out of training camp thinking that this kid would play a significant role. But yet when Thielen didn't play the role that I expected, it's not like KJ absorbed all that time. So if you have decided that KJ Osborne is not the guy, Woods intrigues me, but I don't see Woods as being the guy that you signed to replace Thielen, because I think it's basically a little bit better, but still an aging Thielen. The other question that I've got is this, and this is, again, a total unknown because we clearly didn't see him practice, but there are interesting attributes. Naylor. And I'm not saying I'm putting all my eggs in that basket, but I am saying I think that there's an interesting discussion there internally because he's got the speed. Mm-hmm. He was known in the Big Ten, which is not a bad conference, for being able to stretch the field consistently. Like he does, his college resume provides a lot of the things that you're trying to find. And so like he's another part of that 2022 draft class that I think has not been explored yet and could at least be interesting. Don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard to go into the season. All right, Jalen Naylor is going to be one of your 3 starting wide receivers in 11 personnel. But would it be interesting to see him as the 4th wide receiver when a guy's injured and he becomes the 3rd wide receiver? I think you'd want to see more in training camp and preseason just to get a real feel. But I would be a little surprised if they spent $10+ million on a number 2 wide receiver, only because the dominoes that would have to fall, they would have to get rid of Thielen first, and then they would probably have to address other positions like cornerback with free agency money.
Yeah.
So, but there are some interesting options out there. All right, Tim Hoover chimes in here. We have some comments here about the episode we did yesterday. A lot of positive reviews on our episode yesterday where we just did the whole Vikings offseason until my computer crapped out and I panic drafted Aiden O'Connell, forgetting that we drafted
I didn't know what you were
Stroud.
doing there, but I thought you were just trying to add quarterbacks.
Well, I couldn't see, like my entire screen went black, so I couldn't see you guys and I couldn't see what we had done, and then I forgot that we drafted CJ Stroud. So it's kind of a train wreck.
I don't think you're going to make it. I don't think you're going to make it.
Yeah, you guys have shown why you're never going to be NFL GMs. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday was, if there was ever any doubt, yesterday was the final
Don't forget,
straw.
there was some dissension too.
Well, it's great because that's the one moment that everybody's going to remember, not the 45 other minutes of crunching the numbers and making the tough cuts and getting at each other's throats. Do you want an inside or outside linebacker? It's going to be, he chose 2 quarterbacks. He chose a quarterback.
Hey, Washington drafted RG3 and then Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
RG3, mostly because of injuries, became kind of a bust, and then Kirk Cousins became their franchise quarterback. So maybe we're onto something. Washington's always had the blueprint for great franchise success.
That draft showed your hate for Kirk. That's all it did. You're drafting.
He hates him so bad he's going to draft 2 quarterbacks.
You just keep drafting quarterbacks. And I'm taking another one in the 6th round.
So Tim Hoover says, re-sign Bradbury after 1 average year? No. That's like re-signing Cousins year after year, settling for mediocrity. Let Bradbury go, draft the center of the future, and move on. This will help Ingram more than anything. Stop being a Bradbury booster. Just like Cousins Crusaders, there's Bradbury boosters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to die on. It was part of our exercise yesterday. We're looking at all these things the Vikings have to fill. The Vikings have the 3rd worst cap situation in the NFL right now. And they have 1 draft pick in the first 87 picks. So, like, they have 3 open cornerback spots. Then there's some internal guys that can step in. They're going to probably cut some starting players from defense. I think for us, it was path of least resistance. Okay, there's like 3 viable centers in free agency. You're probably not drafting a center in the first round as much as people want John Michael Schmitz. I just don't know that Kwesi's going to draft if you have one pick, and maybe he finds other picks, but like it's probably not on a center. So for us, it was kind of, all right, he played well enough last year. We'll see, but I don't know about you. I'm not dying on that hill by any means.
The difference between the Bradbury Boosters and the Cousins Crusaders is this. Cousins is paid a ton. We both said we will pay Bradbury probably below what he's going to get.
It was like a $6.5 million.
Yes. So he's probably going to walk. But we never said retain him at all costs. We said if he'll play ball with us. Like we basically got into massive brawls with representatives of players because we basically were trying to cut guys' salaries across the board. So if you can get Bradbury at a reasonable price on like a 3-year contract, I'll do that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if the Houston Texans come along and say we're going to give you this or that, I'm like, Garrett, it's been fun, thanks. Actually, it has not been fun, but you had one good year.
Also, again, when you have elected to pay a quarterback 17% of your salary cap, it'll be the cap's going up. We'll see where it winds up. Maybe it winds up falling in like the 12 to 15% range, but you're not going to have Pro Bowlers at every position. So if you can get by with a Garrett Bradbury at center, but the problem is, and this leads into the next question.
Okay.
Boyd Schoenbeck via YouTube says, you absolutely didn't address our awful offensive line in your offseason episode yesterday. Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, Ezra Cleveland being the 3 main culprits here.
Okay.
And he's right. Like we didn't draft any offensive linemen that I remember. Maybe could have not drafted the second quarterback and picked a guard instead. We didn't sign any offensive linemen in free agency. And so I will agree that was there a case to be made instead of, paying for a linebacker? But again, we cut Kendricks and Hicks. The only starting linebacker that we have as we ran this thing yesterday is Brian Asamoah. And we don't know if Brian Asamoah is good. So no matter what here, okay, well then go sign a linebacker in free agency. Well, now you're banking on Ed Ingram. You could make a very strong case. There's like 5 or 6 viable guards. You could go spend $10 million on a guard and say, all right, Ed Ingram, sorry, guy, you're going to be a backup until you figure it out. We're going to put an actual professional 26-year-old in here and fix your right guard situation. But now you've taken some of your limited free agency money away from potentially other positions that you need.
Yeah, we said, specifically from my end, my whole thing is I think you need to sign a veteran cornerback. I think that's where you need to pay. That to me is the most important thing. Wide receivers, I think that you can draft them and cultivate them and find them. Linebackers and 3-4s inside, I think you can too, which is where I think we fundamentally disagreed on that topic. But I'm not. Look, I disagree with people. I don't think Ezra Cleveland is a train wreck. I don't think he's terrible.
He's pretty bad in pass pro.
He's not great, but I mean, there is room to improve for him. And if you're going to call this line awful, then, and I don't mean this as an insult, you must have started to watch the Vikings last year, because I'll show you awful.
Yeah.
I'll show you 2020 and 21. The Ingram thing to me is really intriguing because they started him every single game.
He played more snaps than any offensive player on the team.
Guys, I don't see them backing off there.
I agree.
Like, I don't think you start a guy that you drafted in the second round who started off awful and actually did show some gradual improvements. Mm-hmm. I don't think you now go into – I don't think you get done, watch film, and say, he's done. The center does concern me because I don't know. And if Bradbury does get paid, as we just talked about, I'm not going to pay him. But I think your guards are coming back, guys. I think your guards are coming back. And again, I am a lot more concerned about corner right now than I am guards.
Could you see them? Let me ask you this, all right? I don't know what the trade value would be, but isn't Ezra Cleveland going into the last year of his contract?
When was he
Pretty
drafted?
sure he is, right? Let me pull him up here. I think that was
it would
his
have been a
third year
4-year
last
contract, so yeah. Yeah, you're probably right.
Let me just verify before I spit my take here.
I think you're right, Phil.
So if this is indeed the last year of his contract, then is a trade possible? Could they decide we're probably not going to extend him because we're already going to have to? We're paying O'Neal. We're going to have to pay Christian Darrisaw,
Right.
Justin Jefferson. Not that Ezra Cleveland would break the bank or anything, but he's not great in pass protection. Excellent as a run blocker.
Yep.
Is there a team that would give you, excuse me, a 4th round pick for a rock solid left guard, and then you sign one in free agency? I'm just throwing some stuff out there.
Right.
Like if you decided, hey, we're not gonna sign him, so let's get something for him going into the last year of his contract.
I hear you.
That's a guy that we haven't talked about as a trade candidate, but I could see it.
Yeah, I just wonder how much of I guess internally, I wonder how much of a red flag they put on both guards. Because they drafted Ingram. He's their guy. They played him every snap, basically, right? So I don't know that they perceive the guard problem as big as we do.
No.
Or I shouldn't say that, as big as some do.
Let's keep rocking here on Feedback Friday, presented, by the way, by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Speaking of offensive lines, it's like having a great offensive line, protecting your business, looking out on the horizon for potential risks that you may need to navigate in, around, or through. Federated's history is rich with innovative, committed people guided by a core set of principles and values that they apply to their work with your business. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Aram chimes in and says, Mackey, you yourself did a multi-level PowerPoint presentation about the fate of defensive ends once they hit age 29. And then Brian Flores was hired, and you threw all of that out the window with Danielle Hunter. Why? So he's referencing, we did an episode like 2 weeks ago, and I kind of explained, if you look historically, especially the last 15 years or so, elite defensive ends stop playing at an elite level once they hit age 29. They can still stay in the league for a few years and be good players, but they're no longer like terrorizing quarterbacks in the way that you're used to. And Danielle Hunter is kind of right on that age line. He's got maybe like one more year left of elite play. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of laid out to you guys, this is a reason why if you can get a 1st round pick or something for Danielle Hunter, you should consider it. And yeah, Brian Flores came in, and yesterday we decided when we were redoing the Vikings roster that Zadarius, Danielle, you should probably keep one of them. I would say I'm open to a conversation. If somebody wants to give me a 1st or 2nd round pick for Danielle Hunter, my phone line's open if I'm crazy. But on the realistic side of things, I don't think you hire Brian Flores and then get rid of both of your top 10 edge rushers. And I don't think there's a world where you trade Danielle and keep Zadarius at that number. Maybe there is. So I think we were looking at it more from, okay, when we did that episode, Brian Flores wasn't hired yet. But now that he is, what might the Vikings be thinking? I don't think they're thinking, we're going to run with a bunch of rookies in Brian Flores' first. They're going to have to play some rookies. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. I just think it's unlikely they're going to say goodbye to both those guys in the next few months.
And on Hunter, we're talking about probably what in reality is a 3-year extension. So it might be 5 years, but it's 3. And the thing about it is, yes, he might not be in a year or two, health provided, all world. But is he going to be an effective player? Yes. That's what I keep coming back to this. His underlying metrics, and hell, the fact that he had 10.5 sacks as well, for 2022 were super impressive for a guy who didn't really stand out and who I don't think was featured. He also played a lot, which to me was impressive because he's a guy who had basically missed the last 2 years, aside from 6 or 7 games. So I just think as far as being a piece to the puzzle, I'm far more comfortable with Danielle Hunter than Zadarius Smith. Mm-hmm. And I also think that the exercise was done with a little bit of a nod towards how the Vikings think as well. Like, personally, I'd blow a ton of guys out. But that's me. I would have done it a year ago. So, we need to think how...
Tough. If it was just Judd running the front office, they would have rebuilt
full
last
Bears.
year.
I would have gone full Bears. But
I go
that's
full
not
Rams,
them.
you go full Bears.
But that's not them. And so, I think that we need to be cognizant of sort of how they might prioritize, which is why, again, I come back to this. Do they really think at TCO Performance Center that they're screwed at guard? My guess is no, they don't.
They need to develop Ezra or Ed Ingram.
Yes, that's their
He
mindset.
was maybe the worst among like guards who played all season. He might have been the worst in the NFL.
Yes,
and our guy Alex Boone has diagrammed this for 6 months. Well, 6 months. I don't know. When did the season start? It's more mechanical things than it is like with Bradbury. It's kind of a physical thing. He's just not his frame and he gets pushed off the ball.
He's forklifted continually,
Right.
or he was.
With Ingram, if and when that happens, it's more about sloppy mechanics, as Boone has laid out time after time. And there is an open invite, and some people have asked, has Ed Ingram taken Boone up? Boone's running an offensive line camp for college kids looking to take the next step. I don't believe Ed Ingram has taken Boone up on that, but I think our guy Alex could actually iron out some of those. I'm sure the Vikings coaches have tried too, and it's just not clicking for him. But
I think he invited Bradbury as well at one point. I think he had reached out to Bradbury and said, "Hey, guy, I can help you," and didn't hear back. But you know what? So the simplest tell-all sign of Ingram's fundamental problems were when you trip your quarterback multiple times. that is not a fluke. Like that's not bad.
He does
luck.
have a tendency to fly open a little too aggressively, as Booney would show.
That's not dumb luck. It's just dumb.
Mike T chimes in here. The best thing I heard Brian Flores say in his opening press conference was when he was asked, "So Brian, 4-3 or 3-4 on defense?"
Joe Schmidt.
Joe Schmidt. His response was, "Who are we playing? Guys, we finally have a coach who works to the strength of his players and changes scheme with a game script a la Belichick. So sick and tired of coaches that have their kick-ass schemes that consistently fail."
Yeah. Yes. Now again, I don't believe that we will have a repeat performance, but let me remind you all that Ed Donatel said all the right things as well. So a year ago at this time, I was very excited about how they might scheme things up and about how they were going to change. Right. So I'm just saying I don't expect a repeat, but let's see it now. Yeah. On game day, let's see that.
I think I don't know. Brian Flores has a much better track record of actually doing this in practice than Ed Donatel does, so I buy it. All right, Mike J. Judd has a feeling Kirk cannot win a Super Bowl. There is absolutely no evidence that Cousins cannot win a Super Bowl.
Don't do this to yourself.
High school and college championships do not predict NFL championships.
Don't do this to yourself.
This is completely irrational feelings.
No, it's not.
That is not grammatically correct.
That's not right, though. It's also
of course he can win a Super Bowl. Look who won Super Bowl, guys. Guys who could not even be NFL starters. Nick Foles, Jeff Hostetler, Doug Williams, Jim Plunkett, who won 2 Super Bowls.
Don't do
That's also like 50 years ago. Trent Dilfer. As for the money, Kirk taking $10 million less will not make any difference to winning a Super Bowl. Mike J. Go ahead.
I feel like all of this has been addressed in previous, like if you go back through the history of Purple Daily, I feel like it's all been addressed.
I've seen Mike commenting on some other. I think Mike has also ingested those episodes and still feels strongly that you, specifically, he's singling out you here, are wrong.
So, Mike, I guess I would ask you this. What the Kirk has done leads you to believe he can win a Super Bowl?
I think if I could speak on behalf of Mike here, I think he's saying it's not Kirk's fault that he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. Okay. That it's everything around him for 10 years. The coaches, the schemes, the defense, the offensive line, the lack of weapons, that it's everyone else's fault always for eternity that he has never gone to the NFC Championship game or won a Super Bowl.
Mike, I've got one thing to say, and I don't mean this derogatorily, but I'm trying to help you out. Bally Sports North, send a letter and a resume, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you take that thought process to Bally's, because you know what I found out last night? The Wild does nothing wrong. The Wild does nothing wrong. It was all bounces that went against them.
You know, the thing that actually triggers me the most about this comment. And there could be on any given day, there could be about 7 things in this comment that trigger old Macadac. But the thing that triggers me the most is Mike J represents a group of people that irrationally care more about Kirk Cousins, like justifying that he gets market value. You know, this comment about how, well, taking $10 million less will not make any difference to winning a Super Bowl. Okay, so what could you get for $10 million? You could get a stud right guard for $10 million. You could get a really good 26-year-old cornerback for $10 million. You could get a second wide receiver that's not 32 years old and washed up for $10 million. Well, maybe not 10, but you could find some more money in the couch cushions. It's like, if your whole defense is, well, my quarterback makes market value, do you want your team to win a Super Bowl? Like I'm sure there's Ravens fans that are the same way, right? Well, Lamar Jackson, all these proposals he keeps putting out, he wants the Deshaun Watson contract. Well, then he doesn't want to win a Super Bowl. Now, I get it with Lamar Jackson. He was a late first-round pick, so he didn't make the money that like a number 1 overall pick, a Baker Mayfield, would have made. When you're coming out of your rookie contract, this is your one chance in a violent sport, injury-plagued, right, where you can get life-changing generational money. Coming out of your rookie contract, I get it. Play hardball. When you're in your mid-30s, if you're still trying to strong-arm for every single possible penny, you don't care about winning a Super Bowl. So Kirk has a chance here, not to prove anyone wrong, but he has a chance to sort of like change course. Do you care about your football legacy? Do you want to win a Super Bowl? Do you want to play in a Super Bowl? Do you want to play in an NFC Championship game for the first time in your career? Then go to the Vikings and say, all right, I'm not going to play on a minimum contract, okay? I still want to get paid because I think I'm one of the 15, I think I'm one of the 10 best in the world at what I do. But I also want to win a Super Bowl. And I know that we have a lot of things that need to be fixed. Let's work together on this. If he does that, I will stand up on this show and give a 30-minute round of applause. But we'll see.
He thinks he did that last year. In restructuring that contract.
He had the third highest cap hit in the NFL last year.
I'm going to tell you right now, Kirk Cousins is convinced that Kirk Cousins can win a Super Bowl at Kirk's current rate.
But then what you're saying is, okay, front office, you need to now, which is ridiculous, because when he signed the initial contract, that front office and coaching staff had done a brilliant job putting together one of the best rosters in the NFL. When he signed with the Vikings, they had one of the best. They had the best defense. They had some of the best skill position players. Thielen prime, Diggs prime, Cook, right? Kyle Rudolph in his prime. Offensive line a little shaky, but it's not going to be perfect. And they missed the playoffs.
The last time that I was in lockstep with Zimmer, but before things went sideways, was at the Combine in 2018 when he said, basically got up there and gave a plea, do not sign Kirk Cousins, because if you do this, you're going to take our whole salary structure and screw it up. And to be very clear, if Lamar Jackson can get the Deshaun Watson contract, good for him. That's awesome. I'm not paying it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, is at some point in time, it's not up to the player to draw the line for himself. It's up to the team to say, this is not a sustainable model to winning a championship.
We should actually, I think, much to the chagrin of a chunk of our audience, we appreciate even the ones that sort of hate listen and think that we're just bonkers when it comes to these quarterback conversations. We do appreciate you guys as well. We should actually flesh some of this out more, maybe on an episode next week. But I'll wrap this part of it by saying he made $40 million in cash last year. $40 million in cash last year. His cap hit was the third highest in the NFL. He did the Vikings a favor by maybe taking a little less than if there were a 3-team bidding war of desperate teams like the Jets if he were to hit free agency. But it's still not nearly enough of a discount. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Yet he was right there with Patrick Mahomes in cap hit.
Yep.
And the Chiefs had to grind there. I mean, look how hard it was for the Chiefs to get through the gauntlet with Patrick Mahomes. So what advantage do you have? You're going to put, everyone wants to put it back on the front office. Well, go find some offense, go find some defense. Okay, well, it would help if the quarterback at this point in his career would say, all right. You know, I kind of owe you guys one. You guys brought me into a Super Bowl ready situation in 2018-19. I wasn't good enough then. I am better than I was then. I'm better in the fourth quarter. I'm 5 years further in my career. I've seen more. I think, would anyone on this show, AJ, Judd, would you disagree? He is a better quarterback now than he was 5 years ago. I think he is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he was as good now as he was in 2018, like if he would have been this version in 2018, they might have actually had a chance to win the Super Bowl or like at least make a run in the playoffs instead of missing the playoffs. If I were him, I would say I kind of feel bad about what happened in 2018-19. How about we cut this thing in half? Let's make a run at this thing. I don't need $40 million in cash anymore. Why don't you give me about $18 million in cash and let's make a run at a Super Bowl.
The adult in the room has to be one thing. The Vikings. This is where, and this is why I get down on executives. You've got to draw that line. You've got to tell them what you just said. I don't expect Kirk to. The athletes, for the most part, are delusional. It's what makes them great. So what you just said is 1,000% right, and that has to come from Kwesi, O'Connell, and Brzezinski.
Yep.
They're the ones who have to tell Kirk, here's what you're going to get. Again, this is why in the exercise yesterday, I was cutting salaries and players drastically because I don't care. I need you to do what I'm telling you to do.
Dude, here's what's crazy. Like I
don't care about you that much.
If I went on Twitter right now, I'm not going to do this because people are just going to it's just going to turn into a dumpster fire, and I want to enjoy my weekend and not look at my arrow.
People. No, you're going to trigger people. You know you're going to do it. You're going to get a couple drinks at the golf show, and you're going to tweet this. So just
you're probably right.
Quit with this charade of I'm not going to do this weekend.
If I went on Twitter. If I said right now on Twitter, Kirk Cousins needs to take a lot less money if he cares about winning a Super Bowl, I would have thousands of people defending him and his ability to make more money. Like people are like, no. He deserves 35, 40, 45 million dollars. Then you don't care as a fan, then you don't care about winning a Super Bowl. But the Rams, I don't want to hear it. You can't point to the one out. And by the way, the Rams are barely an outlier because Matthew Stafford was a supremely talented quarterback that was number 1 overall, got stuck in a dumpster fire franchise. Funny, you put him with a competent franchise in his first year and he wins the Super Bowl. Funny how that works. Didn't exactly happen here in 2018 when the Vikings tried to do it, right? Pull him from a dumpster fire franchise, bring him to a competent franchise.
Yeah, completely backfired on it.
So
everybody.
you can't, even if I give you the Rams example, because like Matthew Stafford was kind of a B-level quarterback, you can't use the one outlier to justify, no, let's continue paying extreme amounts of money for a non-Patrick Mahomes, non-Joe Burrow quarterback and try to win a Super Bowl.
But we know for a fact that there are a ton of folks, and good for them, who are Kirk Cousins fans, and they don't care about the Vikings at all. And, if Kirk Cousins signed with the St. Louis Battlehawks tomorrow, they'd become Battlehawks fans.
It's a closely contested game last night. I watched about an hour and a half of that. XFL
I was all in on Wild Blue Jackets, as was Age. Okay, so there was no.
Hey, the flower, little shutout. Funny what happens when you when you get sat down and watch the backup goalie. Is he really the backup goalie at this point? The Gus Bus, the other goalie, I guess.
The other goalie. There you go.
Perform well for 3 straight wins.
It's also great to play a team that's totally crappy. But that's for another show.
We will talk Wild on Mackey and Judd today.
Really quick on the money thing for Kirk. My viewpoint, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this too, is like I'm never going to be mad at a player. Kind of what Judd said for getting paid. They have limited, finite amount of playing days. Some more than others. Quarterback is probably one of the. If you're good, the longevity is there compared to like a running back. Mm-hmm. But it comes down to if he gets paid a wild amount of money, and you think it really handicaps the team that much and puts they're tying an arm behind their back. I get more upset with the front office for putting pen to paper. Because I understand the viewpoint of he should want to help the team win and be more of a team player and take that discount to do so because, team-friendly discounts, hometown discounts, whatever you want to call it, they've been a thing for quite a long time. But agreeing to actually like that, you have to draw a line at some point. You have to say we're not friends in terms of I want to give you money because I like you a whole lot. I want to give you money, but I also need to give people that are going to benefit you and the team and help grow your legacy so that 30 years from now, they're talking about Kirk Cousins Super Bowl champion, not Kirk Cousins, he's one of the pundits who's on the Fox Sunday show talking about, who's going to win.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to see pundit Kirk Cousins at some point. That'd be amazing. God. Paul Wade chimes in. As CEO of the Kirk haters, you've mentioned several times the statistic about one player making over 13% of the cap means that the team cannot win the big game. Patrick Mahomes broke that this week or this month. Mm-hmm. When the Vikings finally get out from under Kirk's contract, won't they be in the same boat when JJ signs an even bigger contract? That is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Paying Justin Jefferson that amount of money is a thing. And
yes,
it does sort of beg the question, are you better off trading him at some point in the next couple of years for a haul of first and second round picks versus paying him. I think it's impossible for anyone to imagine like not having Justin Jefferson around as a Viking. So if you could find that young rookie scale contract quarterback and you've got you hit on maybe some draft picks in the next couple of years that are also on rookie scale contracts, you could ease the blow. But yeah, like that's but but he's the best. Like I'd rather, if I'm going to pay top dollar, I want you to be the best at your position. Kirk is not, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and we also have to see, and it could be very difficult to swallow, we also have to see the parameters of his contract and the ask, because the thing with Kirk is the guaranteed money on short-term deals, okay? Like, it's twofold. It's not just a salary cap hit. It's how these contracts are structured, and much to their credit, upon the insistence of Team Cousins. So does Justin Jefferson say, I want guaranteed money on a short-term contract? Because if he does, it becomes a real problem.
Yeah.
If he says, I will sign the largest contract for a receiver, but let's get creative. And keep in mind, too, when Mahomes signed his extension a couple of years ago, they almost immediately reworked it and moved money. So, and I'm not saying that that's the perfect world, but that is the world where the player says, I want to win so badly that I'll look good. I know that financially, but I'm also allowing you leeway. The Kirk Cousins contracts do not and have never allowed for that. Keep in mind, the first time he did the Vikings a favor in his mind was after last year, and that, again, was just with the short-term extension. Yeah. So, like, the structures, and this stuff gets, inside baseball, it gets confusing as hell, but the structure of the Jefferson contract will be the most important thing, not the figure that you see on the day it's agreed to.
You know what's crazy about, like, Mahomes signed that, what was it? It was like a $500 million contract or something just ridiculous. And the first year of it, they immediately converted a chunk of his, I can't remember if it was a chunk of his base or if it was they've lined it up so that large chunks of his contract early on are roster bonuses that they can convert to signing bonuses and prorate that money throughout the length of the deal. And they did that, I think, in 2021. But then last year, they just so he had a $7 million cap hit in 2021. Last year, they let the $36 million cap number just sit there because they got rid of Tyreek Hill. They said, all right, we're going to swallow a huge cap number for 2022, yes. And they still won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So, like, if they wanted to, this is really inside baseball here, but if they wanted to, in 2023, so he has a $34 million roster bonus. I don't know when it's due, but usually they're due sometime in like March, or they'll split it. Some of it's due in March, and then some of it's due in like September. My guess is it's due in March. They could take that $34 million roster bonus, spread it out throughout the length of the rest of the 10-year contract or whatever, and bring what's going to be a $49 million cap hit back down to something reasonable because it's a flexible deal. And when you have through 2031 to spread money around, it makes it way easier. And that's why it's almost like if you would have known now that the Vikings are going to spend 5 or 6 years with Kirk Cousins, rather than both sides playing this dance every other year of like, oh, should we do another 1 year, another 2 years? They should have just done a 5-year deal or a 6-year deal to begin with. And then they could have picked their spots a couple times to just like lower the hell out of his cap number. But alas, here we are.
I think he wanted that contract though because it then was all guaranteed.
You know,
like which is why the whole thing of him now saying I want to help here. Look, if Adam Thielen has not already come to the Vikings and said, for the love of God, cut my salary. I'm old. I can't really run. Yeah. I've been here my entire career. You've paid me really well. Give me $12 next season. If Adam Thielen, if his pride is such that he is saying, I still get paid, right? Then how do you expect a guy from Illinois and Michigan to come here and say, I want to help? Like, this is a delusional business.
Yeah. I think that's all the time we have for this Feedback Friday episode. We're actually going to do more Feedback Friday. We're going to do some audio-only episodes, like we said, from the golf show at the Minneapolis Convention Center. So we'll take even, more of your feedback, both in person and via email here throughout some audio-only episodes Friday and Saturday. So a lot coming at you guys. And
so people can't see us from the golf show?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we're not going to be our pretty faces. Like I've done
you
a
can
lot
see
of
our
work
faces
with makeup.
if you're at the golf show. But
True, but I mean, I've done
unless
a lot
you
of
want to
work with
run
makeup.
a camera production there,
I go
you're
in and
welcome
get
to.
makeup every day now. Look, I mean, you see the blush?
You're not putting in that work with Livia for nothing.
That's exactly right, AJ. Thank you.
If you want to put your phone camera up or something, maybe you can do that. And we'll just put some janky, I don't know what you would call it, pirated footage or something on the YouTube channel. Maybe we can do that. All right. Thanks to AJ for filling in for Declan throughout the week here. We'll get you we will get you a Saturday episode here, a check down episode with actual cameras. So you can find that on YouTube this weekend as well. But thanks for hanging out with us. Daily Vikings Entertainment, Purple Daily.